So let me just start the recording. So this is the first class of Activate Your Passion, and it's June 4th. I can't even believe it. It's June 4th already. Welcome, everyone. Thank you, as I said, for taking the time tonight to listen and to participate. As I mentioned, if you want, please get yourself something to write on and to write with. I'm going to talk for a few minutes about passion, but most of the time tonight we're going to spend learning sort of 3 steps that you can take to activate any passion. So you can practice by activating a passion in your life. And with many of my clients, we work on activating passions that they then turn into work opportunities. But the point is so many people that I meet and start working with start right off the bat by saying to me that their challenge is that they don't know what their passion is and that they don't want to create a new work opportunity that doesn't have purpose and meaning for them. And so they're waiting for their passion. And I'm here to alert you to the fact that you don't have to wait. We all have the power and the opportunity to activate our passions at any point in time that we want. I'm going to go ahead and share with you my screen. I've got a couple of slides. I'm going to talk a little bit about sort of the power of passion and why passion really is an important thing. Our instincts and our desires to have a passion makes a lot of sense. So I'm going to share some of that research with you just to assure you that it's a normal feeling. It's actually a really powerful feeling and one that you should act on. Then we're going to spend most of the time, as I mentioned, actually doing some exercises to start you understanding how you can do this in your own life. And I'll finish up by talking about the rest of the course and to see if you're interested and to provide you some information, and then we'll call it a night. And I will be very respectful. We will be done at 8 o'clock. So first and foremost, welcome. Thank you for taking the time. And I wanted to let you know that there were a couple of people at the last minute couldn't attend. So I am recording this and we'll send you a note tomorrow with a link to the replay. So you don't have to take notes if you don't want to. I really would most like you to just sort of be paying attention and taking it in. And last but not least, as I mentioned in the chat, don't hesitate to be sending me your questions. I'm going to unmute you. Let's see if that'll work. So that if you have questions and you don't want to use the chat, just speak up and ask them. I am going to talk for a few minutes, but I really don't want that to be how this goes down. So let me share my screen. Work. Okay, so we've talked about what to expect. As I said, I'm going to talk about why activating your passion is important. I'm going to share with you the 3 C's that you can use to activate or reactivate your passion. These are proven and they're pragmatic. I use these all the time with my clients, and that's why I encounter this so often. I really just want to make this more available to more people. And as I said, the goal is to give you a personal experience so that you actually have started tonight to work on one, so that you can keep working on it. So several of you know who I am, but several of you don't. So let me just spend a minute and explain sort of where my passion expertise comes from. First of all, I am an experiential passion expert. I am not an academic. I haven't done enormous amounts of academic research, but I've lived a very full life with work and client experiences that over the course of 30 or more years has given me the experience of helping people see new possibilities. And that's really what my talent is helping people see the possibilities they can't otherwise imagine. I also did do, about 4 years ago, a research survey with 150 plus women, some of them my classmates, Carol, and around their passions and their passion blocks. And that gave me a lot of insight to how important this was to enabling people to be able to really make changes from a place of feeling that it was something that really intrigued and drew them. I've had a multitude of business experience. I worked for Procter & Gamble for 11 plus years. I've spent 25 plus years founding and running marketing consulting practices that provided services to Fortune 100 companies. I was a CEO of a venture-backed startup in female sexual health for 5 years. And then 5 years ago, when I finished that, when we sold the company, I was 60, and the question I asked myself was, what's next? And I realized very quickly that there weren't a whole lot of people lined up to help me figure out what was next. And so I started my own passion search, because 5 years ago, when somebody said to me, well, what's your passion? I had no idea. And all I knew was that it gave me a terrible feeling in my gut that I didn't know. So this really all came out of my own need to figure out what was important to me. So why is passion good for you? I know we talk about it a lot in this culture, and people talk about, find your passion, pursue your passion. If you're doing your passion, work is not work. But, what's the evidence? What does it do for you? So what's really interesting is there's some fabulous research, because this has been, such a topic of interest, but it's actually really good for your brain. So having a passion, feeling passionate about something, actually staves off memory loss, because you are mentally engaged and you're learning. Passion is really about the curiosity to learn new things. It's really good for your health. People that say they have a passion tend to be more optimistic, and they tend to eat right, exercise, sleep better, do the things that are important to staying healthy. Passion does give you a purpose, and there's a lot of research that shows that if you operate from a sense of purpose, it leads to happiness and fulfillment. And finally, it really drives us to be better. It motivates us to keep learning and to keep improving, which often isn't easy, but is really, really healthy and good for us from a sort of mental happiness and satisfaction perspective. Passion is linked to happiness. I don't know how many of you have read Gretchen Rubin's book, The Happiness Project. But she did a lot of research, and she's written deeply about sort of that passion is deeply connected to happiness. And there's a bunch of reasons why. I'm not going to go through all of them. But really what it is that passion gives you both the perspective of where to put your efforts, and gives you the energy to keep going after it. It connects you to people. It gives you a way to structure your time. It makes the world a richer place. And last but not least, just because I didn't want to leave the scientists out, psychologists basically say that having a passion is really good for you. It's good for your health. It's good for your mind. And it enables you to pursue things in your life when it's not easy. And I think that's really important, because persistence, often people that say they don't know what their passion is express that they experience a lot of fatigue. They experience low energy levels. They feel like they don't have the energy to make a change. And so passion really is a mechanism to being able to create the change you want in your life more effectively. And I think sort of the biggest shift for me was, for a long time, I thought passion was about sort of that I'd lost it, that it was a thing. It was buried someplace and my job was to find it. And I was so jealous of people who seemed to know. I don't know if any of you are this way, but they're just people who know what they want to do, and that's what they do, and it gives them a lot of sense of satisfaction. I was never that person. I was interested and curious about a lot of things, but I didn't feel this just one enduring passion to do a specific thing. And I always felt sort of ashamed that I didn't know what my passion was, that I didn't have a passion, that maybe I sort of was born without a passion. And then a few years ago, as I was working on trying to find my passion again, I stumbled across this whole notion that passion isn't a thing. It's an energy. It's the energy to pursue what intrigues you. That was a whole new thought for me. I'm curious if that's a new thought for you guys, because I'd be interested. How do you think about passion? Have you thought about it as a thing? Have you thought about it as a feeling? Have you thought about it as an energy?
So I'll talk to that, Mary,
Yeah.
because so my name is Liz, and I'll
You're unmuted, Liz. Go ahead. You're good.
So I literally in October sold everything I owned and moved cross country to San Francisco. I was still working at my company, but I really just wanted to change. There was a whole bunch of things about I wanted to do this before I turned 55 and before I got too old. So I moved to San Francisco. I was working remotely for my company where I worked for 6 years. But one of the reasons I chose San Francisco was I went on vacation for the first time ever to California. I always thought like once I landed in California, it would sink to the sea, the big one would happen. But it didn't, and I enjoyed myself so much. And what I found my passion was in San Francisco. And it was nature. I always loved nature and appreciated it. But for in that area in San Francisco and Monterey and Big Sur, they take such care of the environment. And it's beautiful. And it hit me. I'm like, no wonder Californians are so environmentally conscious, is because it's so beautiful there. We want to take care of it. And that really really energized me. And I felt like I always liked it, but that's where my passion now lied. So I wanted to stay in California. I was not able to find a job, moved to Raleigh, but I actually moved to Raleigh for a couple of reasons. It was the tech and the job, but also because it's also pretty here too. There's mountains, there's beaches, and I want to be able to get involved in that environmental thing. So like I'm 55, the same thing that you know, I never felt like driven anywhere to do anything. But at this stage of my life, this is it.
Right.
So I hope that makes sense to the people who are listening.
Yeah, and I'm curious, Liz, is when you experienced that, how did you know?
It changed me, right? Like, so when I moved to California at the end, I was outside all the time, right? So I was walking. So in January, I was staying at an Airbnb in Half Moon Bay. It has to be the most beautiful place in the world, right? But I was having a lot of really hard professional knocks, right? I got laid off, right? Or fired, not laid off. I couldn't find a job to save my life, even though I knew that I should have. The old Liz would have just stayed in her little place. I went for walks. Like, I'm talking 2 or 3 walks every day. Where I lived, I could see, I was right at the bay. I went out and I watched the sunset every night. So it really changed me in terms of I'm not just going to stay in and mope.
Right.
I'm going out and enjoy this beautiful place where I am. So that's how I knew.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it basically was sort of, for you, it was about how you felt,
Yes.
right? And it sort of gave you the energy to deal with some things that otherwise were hard.
Yeah. Yeah, it was really hard.
Yeah, yeah. And I think that was sort of, for me, a new thought. And if it's energy, right?
Yep.
Then there's the opportunity to actually create energy. We control our energy. We have the power to activate energy. And that's really where the idea of this course came from, was to give people tools to be able to say, I'm not feeling it. How do I feel it? Do I have to sit and wait, or can I actually manage this myself? So I'm going to go back and share this and just get to the sort of the first 3 C's and then the first one, and then we'll do a sort of an exercise. So for me, you know, this notion of energy was a really powerful change in my perspective, and it re-empowered me to take control and not to feel that I had to, either that I was never going to find it or that I had to wait. Now, one of the interesting things that can work against our passions, and I just put these up because they may sort of show up in some of the work we do, is, you know, there's this notion we've been talking about of, I don't know what it is, I don't feel it, I can't find it. There's also a fear of, if I pursue my passion, can I make enough money? There's a cultural sort of belief that if I'm pursuing my passion, it's going to generate less money for me. There's a lot of evidence that that's not true, but many of us really worry about, you know, is it sustainable? Interestingly enough, there's some research that shows that some people avoid passion because they actually fear success, not failure, but success. There's fears about change. If I actually find my passion and pursue it, will it change my life? And how will it change my life? And will it affect the people around me? There's ageism fears. Am I too old to have a passion and pursue it? And then there's the one that I think actually is really powerful, at least with many of my clients, which is, what will other people think if I pursue my passion, if I do something irresponsible like pursuing my passion? So the challenge we all have is that we can't think our way to a passion. It's a process that takes action and practice and self-awareness. So let's just jump in and talk about the 3 C's. What I've found working with my clients over the last 3 or 4 years, that there's basically 3 steps to activating your passion. And like most things, they're pretty simple. They just aren't always easy to do. They take practice. So the 3 C's are: curiosity is a huge driver of discovering your passions or activating your passions. Consciousness, that's awareness. We're going to talk about that. And then commitment, which is really about nothing happens unless you take action. And that's really hard because, well, I'll speak for myself. I don't know you guys well enough, but I always want to have it all figured out in my head. You know, I want to know exactly what it looks like. I want to know exactly where I'm going and how I'm going to get there. And so I want to figure it all out. And what I've discovered in the last 3 or 4 years is it just doesn't work that way. It takes action, even when you're not exactly sure how it's all going to turn out. So let's talk about the first one, curiosity. My experience is that if you want to find your passion, you follow your curiosity, which is sort of fun, right? I don't know about the rest of you, but Google is like my curiosity black hole. I love Google, and I'll get interested or intrigued with something, and the next thing I know, an hour is gone because I've been, pursuing additional information and insight on Google. Curiosity, interestingly enough, is actually driven by the same process physically and mentally as physical hunger. I mean, it's a very natural, hard-driven skill that we all have. It fuels a psychological wanting or craving. It changes our brain chemistry, and it fuels exploration and action. So it is a tangible energy that you can tap into, which is what's really cool about it, because it starts with what intrigues you. And then it actually motivates you to explore and learn and change. Importantly, pursuing your curiosity is a very satisfying experience. It actually prompts a positive spiral to be more curious, to continue to pursue your curiosity. And the interesting part about curiosity is it will connect you. It enables you to learn new things. It connects you to new sort of sources, to new people, to people with the same interests, and to opportunities to have new experience related to the curiosity. And the truth is that if you learn to pursue and act on your curiosity, you create passions. It's really that simple. It's just not that necessarily that easy. So what I want to do is I want each of you to sort of, I'm sorry, I don't want to get consciousness yet. I want you to jot down on the paper that you've got next to you. What are some things that you're curious about? What's something that you have read a book about, watched a program about, Googled about in the last month? Just jot it down. And then if you would just type some of the things that you were curious about in the chat so we can share them. Does everybody know how to do that?
I don't see it.
Okay, do you see at the bottom a strip that said underneath the picture that says mute, stop video, invite? There should be one that says chat.
Yeah, I don't see that. Mine says mute, start video, share contact, participants, and more.
Okay, try participants and more. Try and more and see if it's listed there.
Oh, maybe here. Oh, I think I got it. Okay.
Okay, cool. So if everybody would just type something in the chat that they've been curious about in the last, yeah? So Ashley's curious about retirement. Carol's interested in history, particularly social history of a particular time. What time, Carol?
I think really late 1800s and the turn of the century.
Okay, cool. And Ashley, what is it about retirement that you're curious about?
Just kind of, compounding interest and how much money I would need to, well, I'm saving, but continue to need to save in order to kind of get where I want. So every once in a while, I just check in and do some calculations.
Okay, and is it because you have a specific vision of what you want to do in retirement?
No, not necessarily yet. I just want to make sure that I am saving enough money for that time.
Okay, and how are you figuring that out?
So I save each month, and then there's different calculators and stuff you can use to input different numbers and be like, okay, well, if I'm saving this amount, then I'll end up here. If I'm saving this amount, I'll end up there. Okay, so I can kind of play with the numbers to see what it says.
Okay, Cool. And Liz, what are you curious about? I can't hear you. Are you muted? Here, let me unmute you. There you go. Go ahead now.
No, I did something to my screen. I can't figure everything out.
That's
So-
okay.
So honestly, I Google a lot of stuff, but recently my son and I just watched a show. It was terrible. I think it was Bleecker Street or so I Googled like what happened at the end because I can't stand not knowing. And I'm like, I don't want to watch 5 seasons without knowing if I'm going to like the ending.
Right.
And I didn't, so I stopped watching.
Okay. So, and that's, I mean, I think that's interesting because sometimes we start down a path and it turns out that we're really not interested.
Yes. Yes.
Right?
Yeah, I totally agree with you.
And that's okay too, because then we don't have to invest any more time in that direction.
Exactly. You live and learn is a really good saying because it really doesn't. Like how are you going to know what your passion is until you keep taking risks
Right.
or trying?
And I apologize because I can't see a name, but there's someone on the phone. Can you share with us something that you've been curious about? Yes, 914-760.
Oh, that's me. That's Ashley.
Oh, Ashley, you're on twice. Okay, I got it.
Oh, this is I don't know how.
That's okay. That's okay. It's not a problem. So I'm curious, how I'm going to go to the next slide, which is, hold on, I'm just going to share again. So what's interesting to me and the thing that I think has been most helpful for me personally is to start to become curious, to become conscious, aware of when I'm feeling curious. So what I'd like you to do is just jot down on that piece of paper how do you know that you're feeling curious? Are there any specific thoughts you have? Are there any specific questions you ask? Is there anything, I often can't stop talking about it. So I'll learn something really cool and then I'll want to tell all my friends, when I'm out having coffee or dinner. Do you feel any physical sensations? Some people I've worked with, they actually get sort of an energy rush when something intrigues them. Do you get excited? How do you know that you're feeling curious? And the reason I'm asking you to think about this is in order to put more attention, to put more intention behind something, we have to be aware of it. And I think often what happens is we are casually curious about something and we sort of do a slight dip and then we move on. And the question is if you became more aware of when you were curious about something, what might change if you put a little more consciousness to it? So just jot down sort of what happens when you get curious about something. What do you do? How do you feel? How would you explain to somebody that you knew? I've just muted you all because somebody's got some background noise, and I just want you to take a minute and sort of jot it down and think about it. We don't think about this very often. And I wanted to, it's a really powerful tool to become more conscious. So I'm unmuting us. Who'd like to share sort of how they feel or how they might notice when they're curious? Carol?
I think initially I become more quiet and intense, studying something.
Mm-hmm.
And then afterwards, I'll get more chatty and excited about what I found.
Do you experience that when you sort of get quiet, you're doing some exploring? Like what are you doing when you're quiet?
I think reading, Googling, listening to someone, and kind of applying it to me or what I'm interested in. And my mind, actually, I guess I do start then thinking, like lots of little things pop up, not in a super articulate way, but lots of little tangents, I'd say.
So in effect, it triggers more questions.
Yes.
Okay. Are you aware of at what point you shift from the sort of quiet exploration to the excitement and sharing?
No.
Okay. That's okay. Yeah.
Yeah.
As I said, I don't think we pay that much attention to it.
Right. Maybe when I make a connection, that like, whoa, this is really interesting. Let me tell you about it.
So maybe if there's something about something the other person says that triggers, wait, yeah. I've been thinking about this.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Liz, what'd you jot down?
So I'm the opposite of you, Carol. I get really excited really quickly. I'm like, oh my God, this is so interesting. Blah, blah, blah. And I tell everybody, I'm like, blah, 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 blah. But then it falls off. And I find I don't follow up with things. Right? So for me, it's the opposite. It's like I get really excited and interested in things, and then I don't follow up afterwards with stuff. So, and how I know that I'm curious is because I talk about it nonstop. I'm like, oh my God, this is so interesting. Well, and then sometimes I hear myself talk. I'm like, all right, I'm talking about this too much. Nobody cares.
Can you think of a time when there was some persistency to it? Can you think of?
Honestly, it's just more the stuff from California that has been the persistent thing that I've done in my life about that type of plotting my passion, right?
So what's interesting is a lot of that happened when you were sort of by yourself. Did you talk about it with other people when it was happening in Half Moon Bay?
Well, one, you have to understand I was always pretty much by myself. My son has been in college for 4 years, and my friends actually didn't really live near me. So basically my life honestly revolved around work, right? And that was pretty much it. So when I moved, that's when I found it, because I wasn't just at work. Working remotely helped me decide, wow, all the time that I spent at work in person really probably didn't need to happen, and I could use it to go to something else.
Well, and you described earlier that part of it was actually sort of being in it, right?
Yeah.
Taking walks 2 or 3 times a day. So
Yeah.
it sounds like in that instance, you were experiencing it in a way that was different than your usual pattern.
Exactly. That's exactly. So like, yeah, life then was totally different than what I ever experienced before. You know, it was immediate, and if I was curious or I wanted to see something, I went out and I did it, which
Okay.
I've never done before.
Well, and that's just an interesting self-awareness
Yep.
that maybe you think about. There are 2 different kinds of curiosities in my life. The ones I get all excited and share with other people, and the ones I sort of pursue myself.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, this specific one that you pursued for yourself was very satisfying to you.
Yes.
So, so it's interesting as you think about it, is if you don't feel compelled to share, but compelled to act, it may be a more fulfilling curiosity than just sort of a.
Yep. For me personally, yes, that's exactly it, Mary.
Cool. Ashley, what about you? How do you experience, how do you know that you're feeling curious?
I think for me, it's just feeling like, wanting to learn more and do research on that thing. So I'll find I'll sit and, when I have downtime and kind of Google about it and get as much information on it as I can. So I think it's just researching kind of and wanting to know more and learn more and contact people that are in that or do that and, pick their brain and ask questions.
Mm-hmm. Does it ever, can you think of a time in your life where you did that and then moved to doing more?
Yeah, I think there are times that I've done it and then I think I've done it in the sense of in relation to a career.
Mm-hmm.
For example, at one point, years ago when I started researching on event planning, and then I would search different companies in the area, and then I would reach out and ask to pick their brain or speak to them, or if I was trying to get a job, ask if they were hiring, things like that. So I guess I've pursued things in that sense, career-wise sometimes.
Mm-hmm. And so, in effect, you do some research on your own, and then sort of as the research deepened, you might reach out and connect with other people?
Yeah, if it's something that I'm interested in that sense, right? Doing research, for example, on retirement. Is it something that I want to pursue career-wise? No. But is it something that I care about because it's part of my life? Yes. Then there's, right, the event planning thing. I was like, hey, this might be a career that I really want. So that was something that I, was pursuing, I guess, in a different capacity.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess for me, it's just figuring out how does that slot into my life, and is this just something that I want as part of my life, socially, for fun, for a hobby, or for a career?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Carol?
Sorry, my mind was just drifting here, thinking about a passion. So, it was related to history. So,
yeah. Well, I think what's interesting is one of the important things to be able to more consciously activate your passion is to pay attention to sort of your natural tendency. How you pursue curiosity. I do a whole other thing called human design, which looks at how we're energetically designed to sort of move through the world. And each of us has our own unique design. So it's not about doing it a specific way. It's about becoming more conscious of how you do it, so that if something intrigues you, you can consciously say, in Liz's sense, well, maybe instead of talking about this, I'm actually going to do something about it to see if it's really something I want to pursue. And for Carol, it's, let me consciously commit to doing some research and then connecting to some people. And Ashley, the same with you is, so that you can make it happen more quickly and more effectively and get to a deeper understanding of, is this something that you want to continue to pursue, or was it, a curiosity that doesn't seem to have any legs? Simply by being more conscious of it, of how it makes you feel, of how you behave, of how you want to pursue it, just lets you do it more frequently, more often, and to practice it. I'm just going to go back to sharing this one more time to talk about the third one, which is commitment. So we've talked about curiosity. Oh, that didn't work. Can you see this? Yes, I think you can. We've talked about curiosity as being the driver of passion. The way you build a passion is to pursue your curiosity. And what happens is, as you pursue your curiosity, as you become conscious of that pursuit, you build energy, the energy to help you take action. One of the powers of passion is that if you're passionate about something, you've loaded it with energy. It has the energy to get you through things that are hard. So for example, if you had a passion about learning something and you encountered some obstacles, if you're really passionate about it, if you're energized about it, you will find alternative strategies to learn what you need to learn. If you are just, sort of ambling along and you hit an obstacle, you probably won't push through it or around it or get creative about alternative ways to skin the cat. There's not enough energy there for you to take advantage of it. So the power of pursuing curiosity, doing it consciously, is that you are creating the energy to take action. And that really is the third C. The third C is passion is energy, but you can't store it, you can't leverage it unless you actually take action. Thinking about it is not enough to convert curiosity and consciousness into passion. So you talked about, Liz, you took a walk, you put yourself in the context of the place that was making you just feel incredibly good, despite the fact that your life was not unfolding exactly the way you wanted it or expected it or had envisioned it. Simply thinking about it is not enough. You actually have to take action. And one of the interesting things I've learned in sort of all the work and research I've been doing is that, particularly when you're going to take an action that is unfamiliar, when you're going to do something you've never done before. So you're going to reach out to somebody you've never spoken to because they have information that is connected to your passion, your curiosity. You have about 30 seconds before the part of your brain that wants to keep you in the familiar will shut you down. So I encourage you to try this in your life. In my case, I'll be sitting on the couch on a beautiful day and I'll have this thought, oh, Mary, go take a walk along the beach. That would be fun. And if I don't stand up, if I don't sit up, if I don't take some action within 20 to 30 seconds, my head starts to rationalize why keeping my ass in that sofa is really a much better thing to do. Right? And I don't even have to commit to putting my shoes on. I just have to stand up. And then I can say to myself, okay, what action do I want to take next? What action do I want to take next? And so what's really important to sort of creating the full cycle of energy creation that becomes your passion, that fuels creating a passion, is you must act. You must take even one small action. When you're doing the research, write something down. When you're doing the looking, reach out to somebody and ask a question. Part of the reason that you're sharing it with other people and talking about it with other people is that it makes it more real. So that's a positive way. So one of the things, so what I want you to do, and that, sort of as the last exercise, is on the piece of paper, jot down what are actions you've taken. Or if you go back to the original curiosity you wrote down, what's a small action you could take to start to turn that curiosity into something more tangible, like a passion? So just jot those down. Would anybody like to share?
Can you hear me, Mary?
Yes?
So I'll go. I've talked about this before. It's just the act of doing. I am so new. I'm on that couch. I'm not going to get up. Right? But I've learned I need to get up. So it's just like they call like muscle memory.
Mm-hmm.
You just have to get up and keep getting up. So I can tell you, like, I was interviewing a lot, right?
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times I would have had like these interviews over the phone or that type of thing. Instead of doing them sitting down, I started doing them standing up.
Cool. And what did you notice?
Actually the energy was way different when I was standing versus sitting.
Can you describe how?
I was more engaged. I was more energized because I wasn't sitting on a comfortable place. I was actually standing, right? But also I think it in terms of how you think about yourself is different, right? If I'm standing up, I'm more in control versus sitting down.
Right.
I'm not in not in a place of, I'm going to say, encumbrance, like passive, right? I'm in charge. So I kind of felt that I actually felt like the way I talked and how strongly I talked was different when I sat versus standing.
Cool.
So that's something that I've learned, and I've tried to, like, to your point, that 30-second, gotta get off the couch.
Right.
And
So
you're right, don't think about it.
Yeah. So as you sort of think about the passions that you want to pursue, or the curiosities you want to pursue and cultivate in Raleigh outside of your job,
Right.
What's one that you're thinking about?
So there's like a nature conservatory near here.
Yeah.
And being involved with that.
And so what's an action you could take?
Actually contacting them.
Okay.
Since I've gotten here, it was more, honestly, getting here isn't really the place I wanted to be.
Right.
So putting my head around, like, this is now where I am, and making do with where I'm living, even though it's not where I want to be. It can be just as rewarding.
Right.
I just have to let go, and that's the part I'm having a problem with, is letting go of where I had wanted to be, and I wasn't successful there. But here, I've been successful, so maybe this is the place I need to be.
Well, and maybe, perhaps, instead of having to let go, you commit to one small action.
Yeah.
And make it an exploratory,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Don't make it a condition. I have to let go before I pick up the phone and call the conservancy.
Yep. Yep. You're right. You're right. To your point of getting off the couch, I just have to do it. And
Right.
Yep.
And I think the interesting thing is even a small action of write the conservancy's phone number down and put it on your calendar.
Yep.
I don't, we don't have to jump off the Brooklyn Bridge. We just have to start to take small steps in the direction, and things will begin to unfold.
Yep.
Carol, what did you jot down?
Well, I was thinking about my interest in history and
Right.
finding your roots that show. Often I'd be Googling things like, orphanages, or because somebody would have a family story. And so I thought, oh, if I'm really interested, I should narrow that down, orphanages in 1900, or, some other little, very small piece
Mm-hmm.
that would tell me more about what was going on at the time.
Right.
To see if I was really interested in going into depth, or if it's just a surface interest.
Right. It might be fun too, and I just say this in the context of some of the earlier things you said, to think about looking to see if there's anything on YouTube. Can you connect online, even, without necessarily talking to them, to people that are actively engaged in this?
Mm-hmm.
So that you're connecting with how other people are thinking about it, not just your own research. That would be a little bit out of your familiar.
Right. Yeah.
And it might help you start to put a community together.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that makes sense.
Yeah, which part of it is doing what's not comfortable and finding the smallest because nobody likes to do anything that's uncomfortable.
Yes. Okay.
At least I haven't met anybody who has. I will say I haven't met 7.5 billion people, but I've never met anybody who jumps up and down and says, let's do it, it's uncomfortable. But one of the opportunities with curiosity and consciousness is to take an action that's a little bit out of our comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Because that begins to create new possibilities. Einstein was really clear. We can't create solutions to problems with the same thinking that created the problems.
Wow.
So if we're getting outcomes or we're in places that we aren't happy about or we want more, then we have to learn to try things a little differently.
Yeah.
And the power of curiosity and conscious curiosity and then taking a small action is that it's actually a very tangible way to start to create those new possibilities.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
It really does. You have to really put yourself out there, though, and that's the hard part. Right?
Well, yeah, you do. And I want to encourage you not to make it so hard that it's too hard.
No, but even just taking that first step, Mary,
Yeah.
right, is to your point of getting off the sofa. It's just getting
Right.
off the sofa and walking around the block sometimes just feels so monumental. I think the thing that I've learned from me personally is not to make it this huge life-altering thing, just to make it one small thing.
Right.
And then once you do the small thing, oh, I did that. It wasn't so hard. I can try this.
Right.
Those type of things. Although I have to say, I did do a big, huge thing where I sold everything. And
Yeah, and part of, the good news is that you found Half Moon Bay. The bad news is that it was really hard everything else.
well, you have to say, like, making those bigger steps was easier than the small steps for me.
Yeah, because then you're sort of off the cliff as opposed to
Yeah,
having to be persistent.
exactly. I'm lazy, and that was easy to do.
Well, cool. Well, we're 5 minutes to the hour. So, the last thing I want to share with you is what I've found is that doing this with other people sort of sets up accountability partners and support, particularly when I'm venturing into something that feels uncomfortable. So, what I wanted to offer is this has all the content. So I've the 3 C's are the steps that I've found have been most useful with my clients to help them activate passions they've been able to turn into careers and satisfying, meaningful lives. And so I can assure you that if you use those steps, you can make the passions that you want to be creating a fulfilling life for yourself possible. My experience is also that it's a whole lot easier to do if you're in community or if you have support. So I am offering, and I'm going to send you all this information tomorrow with the replay, but I'm offering you the possibility of spending the next 3 Tuesdays working on each of these in depth against something that's really specifically important to you. So it would be taking a curiosity that is important and really working it hard for an hour once a week with some homework in between, so that at the end of the month of June, you have activated a specific passion that's important, either at work or in your life. I'm going to do this on Zoom. It'll be live. It will be with me and anybody else who decides to take the journey with us. And I'm going to set up a private Facebook group so that we can share what's going on sort of as we do it. And the cost is $500 for the 3 classes. I'm perfectly happy to answer questions if you have them, but I'll send you all this information. And if you're interested or have any questions, there'll be, how to get in touch with me and how to reach out to me. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for taking the time tonight. I want to thank you for the opportunity to share what I've learned. I hope it will be helpful. And we have 2 or 3 minutes. If you guys have any questions or any thoughts, happy to chat.
Well, I appreciate your time and letting me join. It has been an amazing just listening to the other women trying to describe how they're changing or trying to get their passion, especially, I knew you when you were working for that company, and then
Right.
afterwards, and then, honestly, you trying to find something after that really resonates that, I'm not the only person or the only woman who's like, okay, now what?
Exactly. There's a whole bunch of us, Liz.
So I appreciate your time with this. It's been amazing.
Oh, you're welcome, Liz. You're welcome. Carol, any questions or thoughts?
No, one thing you mentioned that holds you back is fear of success, which I never thought about before, but I think that's been a real issue with me. This kind of, well, who do you think you are that you could be good at this, or
right.
that anyone would care? So that's an interesting thing to think about, that success isn't defined by, a Pulitzer Prize, or that it's defined by having the passion and the energy that sustains you and excites other people about being with you. So it doesn't have to be some grand, big, important thing.
Right. Choosing a metric that actually takes you in the direction that will make you feel happy and energized and fulfilled. Right? I mean, I think one of the opportunities, I often say to people that this stage of life is an awful lot, we talked about this, Carol, 2 weeks ago, is an awful lot like being 22.
Mhm.
Part of the challenges is sort of there are so many possibilities. The one advantage for many of us, not all of us, but for many of us, is we no longer need to prove anything, right?
Right.
We've made it to this age. We have sustained ourselves. We have raised families. We have had a modicum of success to some degree.
Yeah.
So the opportunity is to say, well, maybe the metric for success is I really love it, or it really makes me happy, or I feel incredibly fulfilled, as opposed to I have to prove something to anybody else, or even just to myself.
Really true. I agree with that.
So pursue your curiosities consciously, take small actions, and truly, in a relatively short period of time, you will have created new possibilities for yourself that right now you cannot see. And I know that for a fact. I can guarantee that. So I encourage both of you. I hope that you'll consider staying on the ride for a couple of more weeks so that you have a tangible passion you've activated by the end of the month. But whether you do or not, I thank you again for joining me tonight. And have a lovely evening.
Thank you so much. I
Thank
really-
you.
You're welcome, guys.
All
I'll
right.
talk to you soon. Yep. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.